And I don't want to skip over that. God spared Noah. So it's important to understand that there are blessings tied to obedience. God spared Noah and Noah's wife and Noah's sons and their wives because of Noah's obedience. He spared them. When we live the way God calls us to live, there are blessings in it for us, okay? And I don't want to skip that. So as we're going through this time right now in our history, don't allow what's going on around you to cause you to live and think and do outside of the will of God. Use this time to draw close to God, okay? So that God can look at you and say, Chris walked with God. Mike walked with God. Remy walked with God. Billy Bob walked with God, whoever Billy Bob is, right? You want it to be known that you walked with God during this time period. And that's the message that I want to get out today. I took the long way to get there, but I wanted to just show that the Israelites were disobedient because they became impatient in their circumstances. And they moved away from God. And God doesn't want us to move away from him. He wants us to draw closer to him. Okay? As the days become more challenging, and they may get more challenging with this coronavirus, and life is changing. Our normal course of life has been disrupted, and it's changing, and it's going to change some more before it gets better. But God doesn't want us to live a life outside of how he has called us to live. He wants us to hold dear to his doctrine, and he wants us to represent the kingdom. So my charge to you, which is the same charge to myself, is that during this time, let's represent the kingdom. Let's do our best to live the way he has called us to live in his word, and let's let the world see God at work. Let's let the world see God at work. And some of that means that God is going to use some of you to demonstrate who he is during this time. You know, God doesn't do everything for us. You know, he wanted to free his people from Egypt, but he used Moses and his brother Aaron to do it. Now, God could have done it himself, but he used Moses. He called Moses and Aaron. He called Moses, and then he let him know he would allow his brother, he'd give him his brother to help him. But he called Moses. God is calling some of you to the same thing during this season. He's calling some of you to represent the kingdom, to demonstrate his word. Somebody out there needs to know that God is real and that God is an ever-present help in time of need. But they won't know that if your voice is silent. So in some form or fashion, you know, put it out there. And I get it. You know, we need to be safe, and we need to honor social distancing and things like that, and figure it out. You know, because that's what God calls us to do sometimes. He says, look, you got the tools. I love how Bishop T.D. Jakes says it. He says, you know, God doesn't make tables. God doesn't make chairs. God makes trees. That's so genius. He says God makes trees. And then with those trees, we are to look at it and see the design of a chair and see the design of a table and then go make it. But God doesn't make the tables and chairs. He just gives us the trees. He makes trees. We have to go now make tables and chairs. Okay? So during this time, let you know, just meditate on God's word, pray on God's word, ask God to show you what he wants you to see during this time. Okay? And then go represent the kingdom. Okay? And do it in a way that you're comfortable. It's different for everybody, and I'm not one to tell people how to go serve. And God uses all of us individually. Everybody didn't serve like Dr. Martin Luther King. There was only one. He had a lot of people behind him, but there was only one Dr. King that answered that charge. Okay, so find out what God is calling you to do during this season, and go represent the kingdom. Don't be silent. Let people hear God's word. Put God's word out there. Have those conversations. And I promise you, you're going to touch more people than you know. I'll see you next time.